I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 10th, 2025 meeting of the Monona Community Media Committee. We do have a quorum. Will, do you have the roll?
I do.
And you got that under control. Fantastic. Next, I'm going to move on to approval of the minutes from the last time the committee met, which was before I became chair, April 10th. Approval of the minutes from the April 10 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motion and a second is what we need
Sure.
from any.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Perfect.
I second.
Is there a second? And Will, you've got that. Is there any discussion about the minutes as you see them in your packet? Is there anything that should be changed or updated? Anything that was inaccurate about that? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as they are in the packet, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Fantastic. Let's move on then to number 4 on the agenda, ongoing business. Will, you've got that just as nothing really ongoing. Is that a part of the agenda where you would have been talking about just projects that are continuing work that you're involved in?
Yes, could have done that, or I think more so perhaps maybe like if we don't approve the agenda or the budget tonight, then it would be ongoing for next meeting.
Got it. Okay. Like old business type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Then we'll move on to 5 then, because our last month, a few of us met, but there was not a quorum. So we talked about some things, but we could not make any decisions. Got it. All right. Moving on. Number 5, new business. We'll put into the packet a whole bunch of stuff at the request of some of our members, just to get like a background on some of these documents, such as the Community Media Operations Manual, the VMO Operations Manual, the agreement between the school and the city, volunteer handbook, things like that. So, Will, were you hoping to just, how would you like to move through those documents?
Well, to be honest, I put informational purposes because I guess a little daunting to go through all of them tonight. I mean, I think we'd be here for quite a while if I would say when you look at them, at least the WVMO, or excuse me, the Community Media Operations Manual, you'll notice that it's 2017, I believe, or 18. Just some of the references are out of date, such as media coordinator and assistant media coordinator. So that it could use some updating. Um, I don't necessarily know. I mean, so that's kind of why I put it as informational, because it could be something we decide, okay, great, let's go through these documents and start and work on the updating, or what have you, changing. But I guess I thought that would be pretty daunting with all of these documents in one sitting.
Right. And
And especially if some people haven't looked it over yet or just glanced at it.
right. And I'm realizing now that I should have requested that the capital budget be listed under old business, the ongoing business. Just because I really think that is our priority, that we need to continue discussing that. But then
The
again,
only reason I put it as new is because we didn't technically we didn't discuss it yet.
Correct. Exactly. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. There are some documents that you shared that might come up when we get into the capital budget, though, I think. One thing that comes to mind is 5B on the agenda, the MOU between the library and the city of Monona.
Yes.
We can look at that. Why don't we scroll down to that page in the agenda? I know that Of course, if there are other questions about those other documents, by all means, please, everybody is free to speak up. It is nice to have those in your collection I mean, for any committee member, it's nice to have those in your collection. So I see it's not in order. If anybody finds the page first, let me know. I'm looking for the MOU between the city and the library. And I
Page
forgot,
50.
it's at the bottom. It's
On
not in
page
the same
50.
order as yeah.
Page 50.
50, thank you. Thank you. All right. So the thing that caught my eye on the budget, as I'm sure many of you linked, was a very significant expense. The capital budget for 2026 is significantly bigger than for past years, and even for the 5-year projection, each of the 5 years coming down the pike. And that is because of some updates to the municipal room, AV equipment in the municipal room at the library. And so one of our members said, in conversation, it was asked, why does community media need to absorb all of those costs? What about the library absorbing some? Let's go back to the MOU and take a look at that and think that through. I know that one might say, well, it's kind of all the same pot of money, but in some ways it's not, right? So we might want to be mindful of that. I don't need to go through the MOU. I'm not going to read it to anybody, but there is a line where it talks about the municipal room. And certainly the majority of times that room is being used for council meetings, finance meetings. A lot of city meetings go in there, but the library does rent out that room for other uses as well. Bill, can I ask you, I know that you brought up a question, and I wonder if you could articulate a bit more on
Sure.
that.
I'm not positive my audio is working. Can you hear me?
It's working wonderfully, yes.
Okay, thanks. So on the in the agenda packet, and I believe it is in that MOU with the library. So on page 51 of your agenda packet, if you scroll ahead, this is in the MOU between the city and the library. So in there, it talks about a lot of the uses of that municipal room that we're proposing, or that Will is proposing the upgrade in the equipment for. But then at the end of that MOU on page 51, it says major capital improvements must be requested through and approved by the cities and library boards budget processes before proceeding. So that's what made me wonder why this is in the community media budget and not in the library board's budget. Or is the library board proposing that in their budget and asking community media to fund it? Will, do you know what the answer to that is?
No, this was my idea to put this in the budget as due diligence, I guess, on my part, being the you know AV rep for the city, being in the media department, and having the current equipment having all been installed by myself and the past media assistant media coordinator, and then additional equipment installed by Fairings AV company. So I took it upon myself to say, you know what, I know this needs to be updated soon. and we need to get this in front of the powers that be, if you will. Um, Now, whether they approve it this budget cycle or three budget cycles down the road, we need to start talking about it at the very least. Because the meetings aren't going anywhere. They're going to be in that room indefinitely. And so that's how this started.
Well, what's the proportion of using that room between city government meetings and library uses and other outside groups?
I would say, I th outside groups use that room, but the equipment itself and how and when and how that's used is mostly majority 80% used by the city meetings such as plan commission, city council, and court hearings, and board of review hearings.
And is this equipment all for broadcast of those meetings and recording, or is some of it like the PA system in the room that provides audio to the in-person audience, like through speakers?
Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be any new speakers installed per se, but yes, it would be somewhat of a mix, especially the audio portion would be, and that's the reason why I wanted to look at the audio is because that is the most utilized feature by the city and by anyone else who may want to use the room and utilize that room for something other than a city meeting, cooking up their computer and wanting to show a video or sound from a PowerPoint and things like that, or just use the microphone to be able to be amplified in the room.
Okay. Teresa, is it in order right now to have discussion of the merits of the request, or do you want to save that for later?
You read my mind. I mean, we're kind of mixing agenda items, but yeah, to go in order.
Yeah, we can this
I
this
like
can
that.
but I do
Yeah,
have some follow-up questions later.
I like that you've sort of pointed out the part of that MOU that we might want to think about. And we have the MOU in front of us to peruse. But I would like to go then, unless there are other questions about that entire packet of documents, I would be comfortable moving on to 5C and look at the actual budget. And then we'll probably get back to that MOU during our budget talks. But are there any questions about some of the documents that Will has shared with us tonight in the packet?
I do have one, and I don't want to
Yeah,
give us whiplash by going back to a different
go
thing,
ahead.
but
That's fine.
and so it's about the WVMO handbook.
Mhm.
And I don't want to go line by line through specific things in there, but I'm just wondering where that came from originally. Who wrote the handbook? Who approved it? And who has the like authority or jurisdiction to consider changes to it in the future?
Uh, Me, all of the above.
Will, do you feel that it holds the test of time? I was reading some of the guidelines, and I guess I just didn't. It didn't occur to me like some of the guidelines related to don't promote an event in certain ways that events can or cannot be promoted. Um, that was just one thing that caught my attention. I don't know if anyone else had questions about that. What I mean by this is, do you feel that, I mean, it's not critical that the handbook be updated. I don't think that that's a top priority right now. But as I was skimming through it, I just wondered if it looks like it's an older document and you feel like it's being followed today.
Are you asking me how much of
I,
it's
I, I am. I am.
uh yeah, that's it's a document that has some guidelines, and then it also is a document that has guidelines that yes are difficult to follow.
Exactly.
So
Their
correct.
guidelines. Yeah.
I mean, for instance, we'd love to have the volunteers, or excuse me, the program hosts volunteer an hour outside of their show every month. Have we been policing that? Absolutely not. That would take a ton of work, and we don't
Right.
have the resources to track that and police that. And so I have the program hosts sign that each year, sign that they've read through it and they know the guidelines, so that we have that on record. And that's as much of the resources we're able to put towards following through on a number of those guidelines, mainly those. I mean, the guidelines for promoting events, those absolutely we follow through those. We program hosts do not promote events on their shows, and we talk about that, and they know that.
That's one thing I was going to mention is Will is good about sending periodic notes to all the hosts about what's in that handbook. Specifically, I know the Plugola is a big one that's been called out. Guidelines on what we can play, how many rotations of songs. So I think he does a pretty good job of putting that in front of us periodically.
Was there any, it is interesting, just to read this through, like the rules of music, no more than 4 tracks by the same artist, in a 3-hour period, there's stuff like that. Will, can you explain again, how are changes made to the handbook? Is there a procedure in place for doing that?
Well, specifically for music in that respect, that would be something that if that was changed by that was the Digital Millennium Act of how that particular instance that you're referencing. So if that would ever change, then yes, we would change the handbook to dictate how we could play music that way.
Okay. Are there any questions that anyone in the room have that you may have about what you're looking at in the handbook? Bill, were you able to ask any question that you had about the handbook?
Well, again, I don't want to take meeting time
Sure.
right now to go line by line through specific things, but I do want to kind of float an idea that maybe um, a subcommittee of this committee, and I would even volunteer to be a subcommittee of one to work with Will if nobody else is interested, but just kind of review this and see where there might be need for updates or clarifications or anything like that. And I'm also aware that people at VMO are sensitive to the idea of the committee and city government and people kind of meddling in programming decisions and so on. And what I'm trying to find is a balance between this committee doing its oversight role for VMO, and trying to be helpful to Will in his role as director, but also having just some kind of transparency and some kind of involvement in taking a look at this and making sure that it still reflects what's taking place and maybe that there is a role for someone to be involved with conversations about whether there are changes allowed. I mean, I see references in different documents to such and such is specifically prohibited by the WVMO handbook. And so is that it? Then it's open and shut. Where does the authority of the handbook come from? Or, is there an oversight role? Is there a role for this committee or how does that work? So I'm just, like I said, I'm just floating this to see if there is an interest in having this kind of a conversation, and Will, whether you think that would be helpful or if that just gets in the way.
Hmm. Alex, did I see that you may have had a question?
No, I
Okay.
didn't have a specific
Okay.
question. Not yet.
Okay. Not yet.
I mean, I
So
think there's certainly
yeah.
a role um, that, for the most part, I've been the one that had the hands on the handbook. the guidelines for WVMO and the guidelines for MCM were put together by the committee. So those two documents were constructed by this committee.
You you said the which two documents?
The joint agreement the joint operation agreement between Monona Community Media is an operational manual, and then the WVMO operational manual. Those were put together by this committee.
Are those in this agenda packet?
Yes. So
So I saw the VMO employee handbook.
Mhm.
yep, and then the City of Monona and Monona Grove School District Video Operations Joint Ownership Agreement.
What
Yeah.
page are you on,
So
Will?
that's in there. And then after
What
you see
page
all
are you
those
on?
wonderful things, you also then you'll get to, which is just a ton of stuff. Um, you'll get to the volunteer handbook.
Saw that.
When you get to the page, Will, let us know the number.
89.
Thank you. I was almost there. Yep.
So there's your Monona Community Media Operations Guidelines.
Okay, 89. So that's television.
Correct. 85 is your radio operating guidelines.
Okay, yes, I did see those in here. So I'm just wanted to confirm that what you're saying this committee was involved in approving was that Monona Community Media Radio Operating Guidelines.
And the one on page 89 as well.
Okay, but not the volunteer handbook.
No, I put that together
Okay.
many years ago and have been updating it as I see fit.
I guess the reason I'm concerned about process is that, you know, after Will has moved on and gotten his Lifetime Achievement Award for WVMO, and somebody else is in charge of the station. Who carries on the kind of the tradition or the founding principles of VMO that it's all based on? Or can the next person come in and make changes on their own?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the way I've personally always looked at it is similar to, say, the Parks Department, um, we'll say, and that, it's my understanding the Parks Board will work on operational types of things, but they won't approve or get involved with what Jake and his department feels is good programming for the Parks and Rec department. And I would be the advocate that that would be the same for WVMO and the television operations. Not that there can't be any opinions, but that when we start programming things, that the committee wouldn't be involved directly in programming. But operational perspective, I completely understand that perspective, especially from whenever I hobble out of here.
Yeah, and to that point, Will, I guess I would look to the very first page of our meeting packet where um the ordinance language of the Community Media Committee is laid out, and the roles and responsibility of committee members. Also, and by the way, as I was scrolling through the packet, also that seemed to be a little different depending on which document you were looking at. In one place that I saw, like our function was just really about the budget, and in other documents I looked at, it was a little broader. But it does not provide authority over programming. that's not to say that, as you say, Will, that opinions exist and ideas exist, and sometimes really good ideas exist, and that might influence programming. I wonder if this topic is something that we want to talk about after the budget. I feel like the budget is something we really need to focus on right now. Will, what are your thoughts about the need to focus on the budget right now?
Yeah, if we were going by Robert's rules, we would already have we've already have like what do I want to say, not followed them. So because based on what's in the agenda specifically and how it's written, that we've already talked about things that aren't in the agenda. So um we probably should
Well,
we should move to the budget.
I I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, we've talked about 5A and B, right? And now we're on to 5C, which is the budget. So let's go on to 5B. And if there are questions about those documents that were included tonight, we can always return to those in a future meeting. All right, draft 2022 capital budget, review and discuss, approval optional. So this is going to start in the meeting packet, a little earlier in the packet.
Page
And
5.
page 5, we had asked at a previous meeting, we had asked for like a 5-year plan, starting with the future budget in front of us, 2026, and then the next few cycles. I think the idea was to just get a broad overview of what's coming down the pike. And I think Will mentioned tonight already about the AV room updates, that you're the person that you feel responsible to be the one to bring this up, bring this to the attention of the city, as you should. Even though it's in the library folks don't know to bring up these issues. You're the one that knows the equipment. So here it is on the community media.
Uh-oh.
And change that around. But for now, it's in the community media budget, I think. Is there any interest in talking? I mean, so page 5 of our packet talks about 2026 and also the next 4 years. Are there any questions about the next 4 years before we dive into 2026? Or perhaps, Will, if you want to give a really high level overview of kind of how you see the next 5 years planning out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a higher level is one being a, this type of equipment and just technology in general, as many of you know, is always changing, turning into more subscription based for almost everything. Um, Things are becoming obsolete quicker. Windows 11 is coming and Windows 10 won't be serviced. So that's some needs to update some computers because they're on Windows 10 and they can't get updated to Windows 11. Um, our production gear is in good shape, both radio and TV, though radio is 10 years old, and the TV side of things is, approaching some of that equipment's right around 7 years old. Some of it a little sooner, 2020. So the goal I've always gone is try to piece each year, try to piece something new, but I guess the higher level is that I have a hard time with 5 years, um, in the sense of items, bigger items
Yeah.
like perhaps a big video server when that needs to be updated. I could go with that, but when we talk about cameras and microphones and uh, even computers a little bit to that extent. Um, Sometimes you need to get it the next year and you didn't know it, so then it completely, then your 5 year changes a little bit based on the
Yeah.
number of smaller, what I consider smaller items compared to Parks and Rec and
Mhm.
Public Works and the amount of money they're spending on equipment compared to the equipment we have.
Mhm.
So I tend to go, a year out And that's about it. Looking 2, 3 years ahead is a little tough, other than just kind of general knowing what we'd
Sure,
like to plan for.
sure. It is, I think it's also safe to say that in the past 5 years, this capital budget has been between the $10,000 and $15,000 range, right?
Correct.
And we, just for capital projects. And so 2026, we've got that big AV room expense. All
The
right.
one thing is the capital process has changed, and I don't know on the top of my head. This is something I could look up, but it's changed within the last, I want to say 3 years. Maybe it's been 4 years. The time kind of doesn't exist since COVID. Capital, as far as our capital budget, our equipment purchases for this department used to fall under the franchise fees. So we only had enough money based on whatever franchise money we had left after our operational expenses, which all came from franchise. And slowly things have been being put onto the levy, onto the
Yep.
tax roll. And
Yep.
up until I think 4 years ago, it's fairly safe, is when the city agreed that our capital budget should also go onto the capital budget of the city as well and not just be under franchise fees. Alex, I see you have a hand up.
I was going to say that.
No, it's fine. I was just kind of curious. So, one of my questions, I think you answered, Teresa, it's normally like 10 to 15,000 a year.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
big change is the municipal room AV update.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and so if I was glancing at that, is uh, does the support of this change? Like, in other words, does it become something that Fearings are they going to own replacements of things over time once this comes into place? I know for some of the contracts am involved in that, we're buying that as a service. Is that what this is in addition to the hardware updates?
It looked like
Interesting.
it was an option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting you should
Oh
say
my
that.
God.
Yep, it's definitely an option. And once I got down to that, I had kind of two different scenarios of buying outright or doing technology as a service purchase.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess I could say that I'm in a unpleasant situation right now where a budget wasn't approved for some significant capital expenditures about keeping the lights on in my own job.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of conversations about moving to a more service-oriented approach as opposed to buying outright.
Mm,
Big part of that consideration is the support aspect of it. Both because things change fast, right? And also in this case, there's one of you, right? So if something goes sideways on something that's 10 years old, nobody likes a surprise, right?
right.
So I wasn't sure if that was reflected in the 2027, 28, 29 budgets as an option, like instead of 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 every 5 years, does it become, an extra $5,000, $10,000 every year? Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
didn't
I
look
can
like that
appreciate
was
that.
necessarily reflected in that page 5 document anyway.
Right. It is reflected in page 11 onward. Let's see, specifically, yeah, Fearings kind of broke it down, and if you find it before I do, let me know. But I remember seeing that there were some options you could, and they broke down the benefits of going with the service option instead of outright ownership.
Yeah,
Um,
page 10, I kind of broke it down simplistically, and then their proposal kind of explains it more, but of kind of a quick overview, layman's terms, if you will, is on page
yeah,
10.
there you go. Much better than going through the Fearings document. Yep. Yeah.
So is that something that wasn't done before, that subscription or service-based approach?
we've never done this type of service based where the equipment is actually a service.
Yeah.
We've bought equipment outright and then had the service package where we get it, where you
Yep.
pay and then you can call anytime you want and get help. Or we bought a piece of gear and then we subscribe to the the service so that we can stream from this particular gear straight to our
Yeah.
app and straight to all those, but never the equipment itself being a service. And the more I read about it, and I appreciate you bringing that up, the more I was like, wow, this actually, even though in the long run you do pay more, you're actually maybe you're not because you're not buying it outright, then buying it outright again, you're actually paying maybe about the same. And the way that the service works out, yeah, you get an upgrade. Like, okay,
Right.
that's old. Now we swap it out and you keep paying and we keep giving you updated stuff.
Yeah. The latest
It
and
also,
greatest are close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. It also brings more predictability into your budget. You can estimate what your costs are going to be instead of getting hit with a surprise expense when something breaks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it's for us, speaking outside of this
Mm,
group, that's a big part of the conversation is the predictability and the ability to support it when
yeah.
there's a small team or a team of one in your case, right? Um, so I didn't know if that was a consideration,
Absolutely,
or
and I look forward to talking to the mayor. Well, depending on of course, what this committee feels. But
Mhm.
depending on what the committee feels, I do look forward to talking about that because that is something that's new to me. And when I talked to them about it, I was excited. And when they sent the proposal, I thought, wow, this actually it does look pretty good for
Mhm.
for anybody, but specifically for a budget like this department and a city like ours.
Yeah,
So as far as that 2026 budget goes, Will has laid out the four items in priority order, the order that he feels is most important. Tell me if I'm wrong, Will. The municipal
Nope,
room is
that's how it works.
the municipal. I remember how that works. The municipal room is on the bottom, right? But it's there. And I think so the job of this committee is um, to approve Will's recommendations or not. And then he will be talking to the mayor about those. Related to the AV room, we certainly could. I think we should have some discussion about whether we want to approve the service model or the outright purchase model. And whatever we approve, we could certainly include a recommendation that the mayor consider uh, leveraging the library's budget wherever she feels appropriate. Will, do you think that that's a reasonable way to introduce that topic about the whose budget it comes out of?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would be the best way to approach it with the mayor to say, and here's a way that perhaps makes it a little more palpable for both departments and for everybody to feel good about the spending
Yeah,
this money and not having it be one part department or the other. It's we're doing the
right,
service agreement that's a little bit more easy to chew each year, and therefore,
right.
Amanda, oh, we got hands up everywhere.
Yep, yep. Amanda, did you have a question still, Alex, before we move on to Amanda?
no, but I'll have other ones.
Oh, yeah. And then Amanda, go ahead.
I'm just curious if I'm sure it would be knowledge just because I'm on this committee, but I've never looked into what the library gets for a budget. Is that public knowledge? Do they get a lot? Can I ask that one? And then two, is their budget a lot more? Is it about comparable to ours? I guess I would like some way to reference how big of an ask that would be.
I just pulled up the 2025 capital budget. The library is on page 77, just from last year. On the Monona website, so let's see. There was, I'm not sure if I'm on the right page. it looked like, now this is again capital, right? It's not operational, it's not salaries. I'm only seeing last year a capital project for the library of $8,000, but that doesn't seem right. I, I don't know that we need to worry about that though, and maybe worry is not the right word. I do feel it's appropriate though for us to simply make the request of the mayor for her to consider the budgets of each department, which are, we don't know what the current budget will be. We don't know what the library will be requesting. And for the mayor to consider a cost sharing between the two, rather than putting this all on community media. Or, I mean, she gets to choose. She gets to make that call.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think then the decision in front of this body is, when it comes to that AV room update, what model do we want to recommend to the city? Do we want to outright purchase, or do we want to do the service model?
And we didn't really talk about it, so if anybody's a little confused or doesn't understand what we're talking about, because we just started sprouting out technology as a service, and so if anybody has any questions before we are not familiar, please let me know.
Well, is there one that if money was no object would be your preference? Are you allowed to answer that?
I mean, I like the technology as a service. I think, I mean, being able to know that we were able to get equipment when we need it as it gets updated. If something, it's not like, it's my understanding we're not going to just get a new piece of gear because it got updated per se. But if a piece of gear was to falter and there was a brand new version out, we'd get the brand new version and it wouldn't cost us anything because we're paying that monthly fee.
Sure.
And as well as it's my understanding reading that I don't know how much priority we would take over other service members or over their service, but we would have a service agreement where if we had any issues with the equipment, they would come out and fix it. Whereas right now, when we have an issue, we paid $220 for somebody to come out for like 45 minutes last time there was an issue.
Okay.
Alex, did you still have your hand up?
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
for it.
So, are the details of that service agreement in here? Because
It was. I don't.
It
I
is.
guess. I guess I shouldn't say I don't know if the exact details or if it just talked about what it would be, but it is in
It's,
there.
yeah, starting on page 11 of the packet is what I have, that Fearing document.
what exactly they'll do is what the terms are is what I was curious about.
So
Page
it's
here.
actually page 29 is when it starts,
Got it.
and it just talks about technology as a service. I do not believe that it actually goes into the terms. It just explains what technology as a service is on page
Talks about,
29.
the benefits of it, what it includes, obsolescence protection, service plan, act of God. Are there more details? So that would be page 29. Are there more details, Alex, that you were hoping to get?
Just what that service plan is.
Right, like
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you'd
Oh.
still have to pay for someone. Sometimes it only includes a piece of equipment.
Got it.
Sometimes, you might still have to pay to get someone out there. You might still have
Got it.
to. So knowing the details of that,
Yeah.
of what their offer is, would be helpful before saying great idea, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I guess the other thing I noticed, and again, this is because I've dealt with it, the teams, the Crestron units, like 10 grand a piece for the programming, is that pretty popular with the city? The teams enabled meeting rooms like that? You guys use that a lot? So those are the
Teams?
little tabletop devices, yeah, where the meetings show up and people can click on them.
Say that again. I was reading that and I didn't hear all of what you were.
There's one of the big chunks in there is for a Crestron tabletop touchscreen,
Oh yeah.
which are used for like Teams meetings usually.
Actually, it would be for, and this is where it gets a little, this is where it would help with the multiple meetings, multiple types of use in that room, where the Crestron little iPad, we'll call it, would have a button that would say council, and it would
Yeah,
set up for a council meeting, and it would say plan
yeah.
commission, and it might set up for a plan commission, and it might say um, presentation from podium or whatever, and then it would set up just for
Oh,
that.
okay.
So it's
It's all
kind of
different.
presets of
Yeah.
how the system works based on how you want to use it. That's what the little interface would be.
Okay. The I can say from my experience with those, the programming of those things, if there ever is an issue, is well worth getting some help on.
Yes, absolutely.
So those kinds of things would be good to have some sort of service agreement with them like that.
So what I'm hearing is a request from Will to get more details of what exactly is included in the service plan.
Yeah, that's what I would be curious about. I mean, I think those are a good idea, but
Yep.
I don't know what Fearing's offer is,
Yeah,
right?
I wanna.
Just knowing that would be good.
I th they did describe it somewhere, and I have to go back and find it. But I can scroll through here for a second if anyone has any other thoughts.
If anyone does find it, maybe I missed it also. It talks about what the warranty does not cover. Um,
Am I really reading this correctly that the price difference between the technology as a service and the lease to buy is they're
That
within
could-
$100, but the biggest difference is we get equity in the equipment if we go with the lease to buy, because we'll own the equipment at the end of the 5 years.
For what it's worth, at the end of 5 years, it's usually not worth anything.
That's what
Right.
I was gonna say. I read it the same way, Amanda, and like it's not like we could resell it or everybody's upgrading at that point. There really isn't any equity in it.
Like less than $5,000 difference between the two contracts at the end of it.
That's what I haven't seen yet.
Doing the math on whether you just lease it outright and pay for it, or I mean, I'm sorry, I was looking at the service plans, which I did find on page 19.
Same. It's not really performance plan. I was looking for service plan, but yeah, that's the performance plan on page 19. Yep. But to Amanda's question, does that make sense, Amanda? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, just they're so similar in price. So
Yeah.
like $5,000 less over about $4,000 to $5,000 less over the 5 years to go with option A, which is Will's preference.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go B, you maybe have some equity in some equipment, or maybe the equipment's not worth anything by the end of the time frame.
And while you're leasing it, do you still get the same service agreement, the same service for performance?
So that's what I was looking at because he had mentioned, and maybe I need to go back to his email, that the service plan was included.
In the lease?
Regardless.
But
think-
but to Alex's point, when you look at the service plan, the standard plan, it's 5% discount on service labor, 5% service labor discount. So you get 5% off if they have to come out and do something.
I think, Will, it would be good to ask them again which is which, because the way I read that is those are literally their service plans that they could apply to any solution.
Correct.
So you're buying that whether you're doing the technology as a service or buying it outright, typically.
Right,
So
right. I think they're
I
separate.
don't- yeah. So is there a price for the technology as a service versus the buy outright?
Yes, so technology as a service subscription, 60-month subscription is $1,400. Excuse me, $1,406 a month. If you were to just do a 60-month traditional lease and then you would own it, it would be $1,400, $1,468.
It seems like a really good deal.
Mhm.
Do other municipalities, like, have you talked to, or is there anyone you know, Will, that's doing option A or something similar that you know has had a positive experience?
I have not reached out to any other organizations to see if they have done this or not. I have not heard of any other organizations saying they've done it and they like it, but I have not asked. And I literally finally got this back, I think late last week, right before the 4th.
Mhm. Will, when
And
was there a question?
oh, I was just gonna say, like, I know, like, when we're at work, we ask for references or we ask to talk to someone that's using the service to see how it's going, but we're probably too far gone past that now. Are we for this budget approval?
Yeah, I mean, I also, I guess I totally agree. And there's a part of me that was also under the um, thought process that if we were to take this to the mayor, that I would also tell her that we would, uh, even though Fairings has some of their equipment already installed, which makes it a little tricky to get other companies involved, I would like to call a couple other companies and have them give a quote as well if we're going to go down, going to go down this route. I wanted to get some type of number to put in a budget, so I called Fairings. But if it is something we wanted to move forward with, I would maybe use this number to move the capital budget forward. But then with the caveat that when I talk to council and when we move forward, I would discuss with them that I am going to talk to other companies to find out where this number sits in the realm of other AV companies, just to make sure we're doing diligence with, three quotes and three sets of ideas.
When do you need to get this to the mayor?
August 15th. So we do have the next meeting would be um, we'd have to have before the 15th, which we're currently scheduled for the 14th, which is on the San Damiano celebration. It's the 10th anniversary for WVMO celebration at San Damiano. So that's another thing that I maybe forgot to put on the agenda now that we're talking about it, that we
That's
need to change next month's meeting, because hopefully we will all be at the WVMO 10th anniversary celebration at San Damiano, August 14th.
so I could just call for a motion. Is there a motion to approve the budget, the first three items? We could just piecemeal this. Is there a motion to approve the first three items that Will has proposed? The video production computer, remote production updates, and the radio station computers updates.
So move.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? Say aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then what do we want to do with this AV budget expense? Do we want to table it for next time or do we want to vote on it tonight? Bill?
I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I do want to say that we've been having this conversation about whether to finance or purchase. And I haven't still felt persuaded of the need for this at all. I think we've been having a conversation that assumes we're going to go ahead and do it. But what I've heard as a rationale for it is that the existing equipment is not intuitive or is not user-friendly, but it still works because we're broadcasting meetings. And so what I'm trying to balance is how much is increasing the usability and the intuitiveness of the equipment. How much is that worth? This seems like a huge chunk of money to address something that sounds to me more like a training problem than an
Mm,
equipment. I mean, somebody knows how to use the equipment because it's being used on a regular basis. So I guess I'd like to hear more about what the justification is for the amount of money that we're asking be spent on this.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. The Yeah, so the thought process for the audio only update is that right now the high schoolers, though we train them, there's a lot of manual working with the equipment when we're doing Zoom meetings. So it can get a little confusing with feedback if they don't have the right levels up, or if um, somebody used the room for the library and didn't switch it back, and the high schoolers don't know. Sometimes they're racing around during a council meeting. Teresa might be able to attest to this, seeing some tech issues at times, or perhaps a little bit every meeting. So it would hopefully dissolve those issues, and then also would provide an opportunity for the library staff that struggles with the equipment to be able to utilize it easier. There's
do-
also some issues of why sometimes it doesn't work for the library because it's integrating our manual audio system with old um, audio boards and then their computer system, and it doesn't always kind of what Alex um, alluded to, because it's a program system. Sometimes it needs to get reset, and then they don't know anything about that. But while they're doing their programming, I might not be available. Most of the times I'm not at 7 o'clock at night or something, so then they can't do their meeting, or Ryan calls me frantically and says, "We can't get this to work. What can we do?" So I'm trying to be proactive and say, okay, we need to get this all working together congruently and not have our 7-year-old, 8-year-old gear mixing with their new Crestron programmable computer system, and try to get everything talking to each other nicely as we can, so that people can utilize this room easier and more friendly, to where public can come in and utilize it, and our staff won't have to go down there and train anybody new who's there to how to use it. It's user friendly to where that whole training aspect you mentioned hopefully is a lot less, if at all, outside of the people who work for Monona Community Media and do broadcasting, which will need to get trained just by the nature of the equipment they're
Will
using.
the service agreement includes training?
Uh, no, I mean, well, yeah, they
Yeah.
install it and then they walk through it for,
Okay.
45 minutes with me and Brennan, and then that would be it. Yeah.
There's a help desk. There's ongoing service.
Yes, and then you could call, but that would be what I need to figure out, because he said the service is in there, but I have to confirm, because it looks like, based on the proposal, that the actual service of operating is different than the technology as a service, and therefore it would be an additional cost. So,
Okay. So we're getting at
If
about
I
the
can
one.
just respond to a couple of things that Will said in response to my question, just to follow up.
Sure.
Um, this is all the more reason to involve the library in the budget discussion, because one of the things you said is that it is the library employees who have been having most of the difficulty in integrating the two different kinds of equipment, the city's equipment and the library's equipment. So if this is going to mostly benefit them, all the more reason to have them as part of the conversation about which budget or which pot of money this comes out of. But then it was also said earlier that the majority of the use of this room, like I don't know if you said 80% or whatever, is city meetings. And so it's a very small percentage of time that the library is using the room. So I guess
Right.
I'm confused about where the problem lies.
Yeah, it's not every week they're calling us with an issue. It's once a month, once every 6 weeks where, the circulation desk person is trying to help somebody down there and they don't know what's going on. They can't use the gear and they call us, or even Ryan himself is down there and something's not working, and then I'll have to go the next day and just reset the equipment, and trying to talk through, obviously, as you know, on the phone about something like that can be tough. Um, so again, I am not sitting here saying we have to do this and this has to happen now. And I am clearly just here to put this in front of the powers that be for the city. And if we feel we want to go to the library board and we want to go to the mayor and we want this kick this down the road a little bit more for another year or so. Um, I I don't have a problem with that. Again, this is just me doing diligence, knowing that there is an issue there. There's been an issue there that's been annoying Ryan, that annoys us sometimes because it's frustrating to have to deal with things that, lost time accidents, if you will.
I have a feeling no matter what equipment you install, there's always going to be calls, requests for your time to run down and help someone to use the equipment, no matter what the equipment is.
Right. Which really the issue is that we're never there, right? All those things that happen aren't between 8 and 6. They're 6:30,
Right.
7 o'clock, you know.
So I think some themes that I'm hearing is that most what I'm hearing is support for the service, software as a service model. And I'm thinking, or I'm crunching some numbers, it looks like about $17,000 a year. Is that correct, Will? For the
Yeah.
next 5 years to do everything in that AV room. The third point I would make is just because you ask for it doesn't mean you get it. And I think what we're here tonight is to decide whether we want to ask for this. And that ask then goes together with all the other asks from every other department. And the mayor will sit down with Will and each department and start to cut up all of your requests. So we don't have to vote on it tonight. We can certainly vote on it next time. We could vote on it this evening. I will accept a motion from the body to do either of those things. If you think you need more information from Will, we can delay the vote. If you're ready to vote, we can vote now.
I would move to table this until the next meeting, and that would give Will time to have these conversations with the library and with the mayor,
Okay.
and then come back maybe with a plan for what the consensus is as to what pot this should come from and any other unanswered questions.
Okay, so there's a motion to table this conversation until our August meeting. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Second?
Yeah, I would
Oh.
also ask for maybe some of the information to get from, I had two questions for Will, actually, for next time necessarily.
Oh.
Is like a comfort level of what the ask is. Is it consistent with, this is 8-year-old technology. Is it consistent with where you want to be from how you do what you do, right? Technology wise, is it right, or are you just redoing the 8-year-old thing again, right?
Yeah.
That's just a general question, but the other part is as far as that service thing goes, I think having some better details on what's included in it, were that to be a real strong option, if everyone were to say, "Yep, this sounds like a good idea," but I'd be curious because there's some wording in there that for me, I would want to read a little more closely to see
Right.
whether it
Well,
was
and to your
a good
point, I
deal.
feel like
So,
I don't feel like based on reading it, I can feel pretty confident that it doesn't involve the labor like you mentioned. It involves the
yeah,
technology, and if we say something's, the technology isn't working and they come out and replace the technology, that wouldn't cost us, but the time they came out to do it would cost us. That's my understanding based on the technology as a service cost. And then if we wanted a service plan, we would add that on as well. So then it would be like a $2,600 cost. But won't get ahead of myself. I'll detail
yeah.
that out for the next meeting and have that be a little more.
Okay. So we've got a motion to table this until the next meeting. We've got a second. All in favor of tabling this conversation until our August meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Opposed? Great. We're going to pick up this conversation in August. The other three items that Will has proposed, we've already passed, we've already approved. It's just this fourth item that's outstanding. Will is going to collect some information from the vendor about, details on that service agreement. And then Alex, you brought up an excellent question. Does this service agreement get us to where we want to be, or does it just sort of keep the status quo and keep the status quo running? So that's something that only Will can answer, I think. And we can talk about that at the August meeting also. Speaking of the August meeting, I know that on our agenda, we do have department reports and updates from community media, but I also do want to talk about that August meeting. So I'm going to move on to the agenda item number 6, department reports. Will, do you have a quick little update? WVMO news and community.
I can do it pretty quick. I
Sure.
just sent out a press release today. We are celebrating 10th anniversary things. The 14th at San Damiano, we have Wheelhouse. Obviously, we are there tonight as well for the Progressive Lane All Stars.
Yep.
August 22nd, we
It's
are.
been, the beer garden is canceled tonight.
Oh
Oh,
no.
they did,
Yeah.
huh? With the lightning and everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
I had people coming to my van saying, if you're waiting for it, it's canceled.
oh,
Oh,
okay.
bummer. Okay, so we're not no longer. Okay. So the 14th, Wheelhouse will be there and we'll hope no rain. The 22nd, we're hosting Craig Bauman and the Story at the Harmony as a 10th celebration for WVMO. And then I'm gonna have to look at my press release because now the dates gets away from me. But I do know that perhaps the 26th of August, we are celebrating with the new Atwood Music Hall, the Tim O'Brien Band for the 10th anniversary. So that's kind of the plan right now with WVMO and celebrating their 10th anniversary. We're continuing to do all the great things. Joe is the rock star at WVMO, and if he was here, he'd probably have many more things to say of what he's up to and what's going on. I can say with Monona Community Media, we continue to put together MESBA profile videos. Today we're at Burn Boot Camp. Later we're going tomorrow. Brennan will be at Java Abilities. They're ribbon cutting, and which is really great. Not too sure how many people know about that, but that is a wonderful business. Um, We have we went to Capital Hardwood, which is on Stoughton Road, so not a Monona, but it's a Mesbah member. Vendor Reptile Rapture, which was interesting. I've never been in that building, and that was interesting, but we did that story. So we're supporting local businesses and being involved with the chamber in that way, which is wonderful. And we continue to be busy right now. It's capital budget time, and I did a lot of working on just getting the word out about the 10th anniversary and working with the friends on that perspective.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you.
And of
Um,
course, I will say, of course, the newsletter comes out next Wednesday. So any other information that anyone feels should be in the newsletter, I think you should feel free to email myself and Anita or just Anita and get the ball rolling.
I keep looking at the clock and I'm mindful that we're over the 1 hour mark. So I do want to roll things along. So we need to nail down a date for our August meeting. And because we're going to table the AV room updates, we do need to meet earlier in the month. We can't push it back to the second half of the month. So while we're on the phone or on the meeting, let's look at calendars and come on, pick out a date that works for everyone here. Let's see here. So for the month of August, we would normally have met on the 14th. I am not available on the 7th. We have to meet earlier than the 14th. We have to meet. I would be available to meet on the 5th, 11th, and 12th.
I am available on the 11th and 12th.
Those are both good for me.
Me too.
Why don't we say, oh, anyone else have a preference, 11 or 12?
I have a school board meeting. Susan and I will both be at the school board on the 12th.
So the 11th is still good for everyone?
Yes.
August 11th it is. I'm putting it on my calendar. That's awesome. 5 o'clock. Does 5 o'clock work? Sweet. That was so easy. All right. Excellent. August 11th, Monday evening it is, 5 o'clock. Will's got his homework to collect that information. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I would motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Was there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
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 Aye. Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. See you in about a month.
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Well, I should have,
Hold on one second here. Hold on one second.